and welcome to the semifinals of Grand Prix Charleston. We have Brian Eason facing off against Peter Kelly here in the semifinals. I'm Ben Swartz, joined here in the booth by Marshall Sutcliffe. Hi, Marshall.
Hey, this is going to be a sweet one here. We've got Peter Kelly on the right-hand side, and he is playing a green-white aggressive deck with some disruptive creatures like Judge's Familiar and Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, and he's going to be looking to apply a lot of pressure early and pump his guys up via Mayor of Averbrook and the like. Again, it's kind of like a lot of his creatures sit on the table and either pump the rest of his guys or try to disrupt what you're doing to kill them, and he can apply enough pressure to kill you pretty quickly. Brian East on the other side of the table, though, is playing what we call a junk tokens list. It's a black, white, green tokens list that is using cards like Midnight Haunting, Intangible Virtue, Lingering Souls to apply pressure via a relatively few amount of cards, and that frees up some spots for things like Planeswalkers and some removal. And so let's see what happens here. Brian Eason is going to lead off with a
Temple Garden,
and it's tapped.
A turn 1 Avacyn's Pilgrim for Peter Kelly to start things off for his green-white deck.
That is not an ideal start for Brian Eason. He has 3 Arbor Elf and 4 Avacyn's Pilgrim. He'd much rather play one of those on the first turn, but it looks like he's either drew the Arbor Elf or he's really concerned about conserving his life total here, and he's going to take his time with a turn 2 Arbor Elf and then another Temple Garden. 2 different art.
Yeah, one's the new art from Return to Ravnica, one's the old art from Ravnica, the original. But a second Avacyn's Pilgrim and a Judge's Familiar for Peter Kelly. Peter Kelly then serves in with the Avacyn's Pilgrim, assuming Brian Eason's not going to block. He doesn't. Brian Eason falls to 19 life, and Peter Kelly passes the turn. Now with 3 mana at his disposal, it does not look like Brian Eason has any lands. So he's mulling over his options. He could cast a Midnight Haunting at the end of Peter Kelly's turn.
But he can. But if he does that, he risks getting it Judge's Familiared.
Yep.
So he doesn't want to, commit basically his entire turn just to kill.
It, yeah.
Judge's Familiar. I think he's got an Intangible Virtue. He can get that through a Judge's Familiar, but he would tap out for it, and it also doesn't really do anything right now. He's got a tough decision early in the game here.
Yeah, I mean, he's bottlenecked on lands. He's going to go ahead and cast
a Borderland Ranger. Now that one, yes, and we didn't see that one in his hand, but there it is, a Borderland Ranger. That's going to help him out a lot. It's going to get him another mana, another land into his hand. It's also going to put a blocker up just for the Avacyn's Pilgrims, and it can't be countered by Judge's Familiar, so definitely seems like the most reasonable line here. And does he have another creature that he gets to play with his 1 mana? I don't think he does. There it is, Arbor Elf.
I didn't see either.
I stand corrected. Yep, that's fine. It's hard to see all the cards when they've got 7 at the starting point, so we do the best we can with what we can see from the camera, but we've got to remember we're looking at the same feed that you guys are. All right, there's a Gavany Township for Peter Kelly.
And he has a Sublime Archangel in his hand.
All right, so he's got some options here. Does he have... He does not have enough white mana to... Oh, he's got 2 Avacyn's Pilgrims. Those make white mana, excuse me. Thought that those were Arbor Elves, but they're not. So, yeah, he can play a Sublime Archangel if he wants, or he can just start Gavany Townshipping. If he starts doing the Gavany Township plan, he won't be able to actually attack with most of his creatures, so he's not going to do that. Instead, he's just going to play out the Sublime Archangel. Now, it has Exalted, and it gives all other creatures that he controls Exalted. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and he's going to just crash in there for 5 damage here, bring Brian down to 14.
And Peter's done with his turn, passes it back to Brian Eason. Brian Eason now has access to a lot more mana, thanks to casting that Borderland Ranger and the Arbor Elf. And mulling over his options again, he got a victory last round, just barely, against Pat Cox, using Soren's emblem to take him out in the last game. So he wants to make sure he's making all of the right plays here to continue through his tournament. I know that you believe he's the favorite in this tournament, right, Marshall?
I don't know. I have no idea if he's actually the favorite. I just know that I kind of like his deck the most, and I wouldn't mind seeing it win.
Okay. So he drew a ultimate price for this turn, Brian, and he's passing the turn back. Looks like he's going to cast a Midnight Haunting at the end of Peter Kelly's turn or during Peter Kelly's turn.
got access to 5 mana thanks to the 2 Arbor Elves.
Yeah, now he can serve in with that Sublime Archangel and use Gavany Township to give all his creatures +1/+1, but instead he's just going to attack in with the Judge's Familiar, use Exalted from all of his creatures. So the Judge's Familiar becomes a 5/5. Presumably, Eason here is going to cast Midnight Haunting, putting 2 1/1 Flying Spirit tokens into play. You think he blocks here with one?
I don't know. I mean, he didn't send in the Sublime Archangel itself, but it looks like he doesn't want to go down to 9 here, so he is going to go ahead and block.
Post-combat, Peter's going to cast a Mayor of Avabrook and a Fencing Ace.
All right, so Peter Kelly has a pretty impressive board state here. He's got 2 2/2 Avacyn's Pilgrims. He's got a 2/2 Fencing Ace. He's got the Judge's Familiar. Plus, he's got a Sublime Archangel and a Mayor of Avabrook.
Oh, and all of those creatures have Exalted, all 6.
That's right.
So.
By the by. All right, is that an intangible virtue down there?
Yep.
It's just a little off camera, but it's the only thing that makes sense for having cast it for 2 mana. All right, there it is. So that's going to pump up that token. It's also, remember, Brian Eason has another Midnight Haunting in hand here, I believe. So he's going to be able to flash in up to 4 power here. Now, do you know why Peter Kelly's not attacking with the Sublime Archangel? I tried to think of something last turn and I couldn't.
I mean,
is it just like
not sure, but
it's white and green he's up against here, so
if it could be because he's afraid of an ultimate price, but there's no black mana.
Yeah, see, I thought about that too, but there's just no black mana, so I mean, it didn't end up mattering.
Selesnya Charm, I guess, is the reason.
Selesnya Charm, there's one. I mean, he did get to take a look at Brian Eason's deck, though, and I don't think he has it. Actually, we did see one from him. It might be in the sideboard.
He's got 3 in the main deck.
Oh, yeah. He does have 3 main. All right, so he's playing around Selesnya
right
Charm.
past it.
Very nice. Yeah, the players did have a chance to actually go over the deck lists, the deck of their opponent, so they're very aware of all the things like that. We have the deck list in front of us, but it's more a form of reference than it is anything else. All right, so Midnight Haunting flashed in, so he's just added 4 more power to the board. It looks like he's just going to chump block. All right, he's going to eat the Judge's Familiar. He's going to trade off with the Pilgrim. He's going to trade off with another Pilgrim. And at this point, he would be taking just 2 damage.
Taking 4 damage from the Fencing Ace, right? It's a 2/2 thanks to the Mayor of Avabrook.
Right.
It would have been devastating if Peter had a Rancor right there. He could have just attacked with a Fencing Ace. Would have been gigantic, right? It would have been an 8/8.
Yeah, and this deck has that ability to just punch through huge amounts of damage.
Oh, sorry, it'd be a 10/8 when attacking. So Kelly trades away a lot of his creatures. And we're back to Brian Eason's turn. Mayor of Avabrook does not transform because of the Midnight Haunting that Brian cast. And now Brian is going to cast Garruk Primal Hunter. Make a 3/3 Wolf token. Or not Wolf token, Beast token. And he's likely going to serve in with the Spirit tokens, right? Attack in.
I mean, they have Vigilance. I guess he didn't want to lose one to the Angel.
Maybe I would have attacked before I cast Garruk. If Peter Kelly is afraid of something, maybe.
I mean, they're just 2/2s, though, right?
Yeah. Oh, wow. There's the Rancor I was talking about on that Fencing Ace. If Peter had all his creatures before, it would have been lethal. Yeah. But now is it lethal?
Let's find out. He's doing the math right now himself. These are questions that the players have to ask themselves. He's going to attack either way. He gets 3 Exalted triggers from it.
So it's a 5/5 plus 2/0 is a 7/5.
So it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it's representing double strike and trample here. So he's going to have to throw a whole bunch of stuff in front of it just to not die. I mean, he can throw some of these tokens in to not die this turn, but like that thing's going to come at him again. So he puts 2 spirits and an Arbor Elf, so 5
toughness worth of guys. So he can make sure to kill the fencing ace. It actually doesn't kill it, but Selesnya Charm will give it +2/+2. That will take out all of the creatures. How much trample damage are we dealing? Is that enough to kill Brian Eason?
It looks like lethal. It was 18 total damage coming across, and he only put
5,
6.
so.
Yeah, 5 in front. So there you go. It's enough. And you actually saw that play coming.
He needed a rancor. I think he drew.
Yeah,
he
drew the rancor, and all of a sudden that fencing ace with all that exalted became just a heavy hitter, and was able to power through even a pretty well developed board there.
Wow.
From Brian Eason. So again, we talked about cards like Ultimate Price for Brian Eason. I mean, how key would that have been? He could have taken out the Sublime Archangel earlier in the game, or in that turn he could have taken out the fencing ace in response to the rancor. I mean, there was a lot.
He had an Ultimate Price in hand. He didn't get a swamp off of the Borderland Ranger on turn 2 or turn 3.
Mm-hmm.
Got a forest instead, so he could cast that Arbor Elf, which allowed him to advance his board state, but also he never drew a black source. We're going to take a quick look at John Bolding versus Matt Keen, the 2 black-red players, and looks like that match is over with John Bolding winning game 1.
Is this game 1?
Game 2, game 1. Maybe we can get an update from our spotter on the floor.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to the boards.
Yeah, so John won that game, game 1. And now those 2 players will go to the sideboard. Thanks for joining us for the semifinals of Grand Prix Charleston. I'm Ben Swartz. I'm here with Marshall Sutcliffe. And there you get a look at the crowd that's watching this semifinals match. You can see in the corner there the trophy and the plaque, who the champion and the finalist are going to get.
They're changing those trophies.
Yeah, did you see the new ones?
Mm-hmm. They look sweet.
Yeah.
People are trying to clamor to get some of the last of the cup-style trophies. They like those ones.
But did you see what Helen said on Twitter?
I did.
That if Shuhei wins 10 Grand Prix, they'll make a special one just for him.
Oh, I didn't see that part, no. Did you say if or when?
When.
Yeah. I think that's more correct at this point.
So here's the top 8 bracket. 2 games have finished. We saw Peter Kelly win game 1 over Brian Eason, and then we saw John Bolding win game 1 over Matt Keen. The winner of those 2 matches is going to advance. They're going to play in the finals, and then we'll get a champion here at Grand Prix Charleston. Thank you for joining us. We should have some Magic action in just a second. Players are getting shuffled up and ready for their second games in their match. We're going to go back down to the Peter Kelly-Brian Eason matchup.
Brian Eason now down a game.
So what does the board look like?
The sideboard plan here?
Yeah.
Let's take a look here. Peter Kelly, he has 2 Nevermore, 2 Faith's Shield, which could be interesting. I think those would probably come in. A Selesnya Charm, Sundering Growth, those will come in for sure. Double Fiend Hunter, 4 Dryad Militant, which he actually might want to bring in as well. He did see Lingering Souls from his opponent, although, and 2 Elite Inquisitors. So probably Dryad Militant, Sundering Growth, probably the Faith Shield will come in. Out of Brian Eason's board, he's got the Rest in Peace. Are they underway here? No, they're getting there.
Still shuffling.
All right, 3 Rest in Peace, 3 Centaur Healer. None of these are very particularly good against Peter Kelly's deck. The 3rd Ultimate Price for sure. Intrepid Hero, absolutely.
Wow.
That should come in. Peter Kelly doesn't have a lot of ways to interact with an Intrepid Hero, and he's also got, and Brian Eason also has a Slayer of the Wicked. I don't know that it hits anything. I guess it does hit the Werewolf, right?
It's Mayor of Avonbrook.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's a werewolf on both sides too, so you bring in your one of there. Nothing really. I don't really see any silver bullets here sitting in the sideboard.
No, it's
they don't have any sweeper effects or anything like that.
It's going to be this creature on creature battle, and Peter Kelly is the one who's got a couple of things to punch through the action with the Rancor and the Fencing Ace, like we saw that previous game. But Brian Eason also has quite a few heavy hitters, right? He's got all of the Planeswalkers.
He does.
He can crank out these unbeatable tokens that are so large, and he can just crank out so many of them.
All right, looks like we're underway. Brian Eason does have the turn 1 Avacyn's Pilgrim here, and he did play that Temple Garden untapped, so he's going to go down to 18. Peter Kelly is going to do the same thing on his side, and he's probably got a similar opener.
Yeah, turn one, Judge's Familiar.
The Judge's Familiar, a little bit different. That is going to prevent a turn 2 Lingering Souls if that's what Brian Eason's plan was here. At least it could if Peter decided so.
But instead, it looks like Brian Eason is just going to cast Centaur Healer.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting sideboard. Doesn't really do a whole lot. I mean, it will help block a little bit on the ground and create a bit of a life bumper. But, you know, honestly, look how much damage Peter Kelly was doing last turn when he got his combo of Sublime Archangel, a couple of creatures, and one of them being Fencing Ace with Rancor. It was like it kind of didn't matter what Brian Eason's life total was at that point. He was going to kill him.
And there's Rancor, the card we saw last game. A second
double Rancor hit you for 5?
Wow.
All right, well, I guess we can probably discount the fact that Peter Kelly is going to sacrifice that Judge's Familiar at this point.
Yeah, so if you're Brian Eason here, you just slam down the Lingering Souls, right?
If he's got one in his hand.
Well, Brian's going to attack in for 3 with a Centaur Healer.
Let's see what Brian Eason can come up with here. Oh!
Sever the Bloodline?
I did see a Sever the Bloodline, but it looks like he's going to go for the Lingering Souls like you mentioned there.
Does Lingering Souls resolve? He's baiting Peter Kelly to sacrifice that Judge's Familiar. I mean,
Peter Kelly seems to be on this plan, but you know, it wouldn't be too unreasonable for him to sack it there, I don't think, because isn't the Judge's Familiar just going to die to a a Lingering Souls token anyway? I mean, you do get a little more damage in that way.
And you also have 2 Rancors.
Yeah, the question is, does he think? Yeah, you have the Rancors either way. He's going to attack.
But I mean, getting through the damage is important if he's going to just play another guy and
slap
Rancor.
More Rancors on him, yeah.
So that's what happens, just like you said.
All right, so the net result here is that he does end up getting 4 extra damage through, dropping Brian Eason down to 12, and he's going to play a Fiend Hunter post-combat.
Fiend Hunter is going to take out the Avacyn's Pilgrim, which is a big deal because Brian Eason's holding on to that Sever the Bloodline. But he does draw a 4th land.
He's drawn another Overgrown Tomb, so if he wants to sever, he can.
You might want to wait for Peter Kelly to move in with his Rancors on that Fiend Hunter, but
yeah,
he's running out of time in life.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a reasonable line, though, in that Fiend Hunter doesn't really do much as far as attacking or blocking until it does get some Fiend Hunters or
some Rancors.
Yeah, some Rancors or some maybe a Sublime Archangel down or something like that. It looks like he's going to go for an Intangible Virtue, and that's going to allow him to tack in for 5 damage here.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, he's going to be able to put the heat right back onto Peter, and it's going to be a flashback Lingering Souls, putting 4 more power and toughness on the table, and Brian Eason is in a pretty good position here. Peter Kelly's at 10. I mean, he's facing lethal.
Not sure what he can come up with to beat Brian Eason's draw here.
Actually, it's not lethal, is it? 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9.
He's got if he draws a land, he's got Cavendish Township.
There you go. See, he's got a Borderland Ranger and a Sever the Bloodline in hand, so he can certainly get that Fiend Hunter out of the way, but really he's just turned the tables pretty quickly here and has a lot of pressure on Peter Kelly. Peter Kelly cannot go with the Rancor attack plan here. Looks like he's going to play a Thalia to lead things off, and he's going to have to pay an extra 1 and tap a green to play Rancor on a Thalia. Now that's pretty good.
Striker.
It is. Unfortunately, for him, you know, the tokens all have flying, so he's just going to bash him down to 4 here.
Yep. Brian gets in with his 3/2/2 Flying Spirit tokens, dropping Peter down to 4.
And he's looking like he's in a pretty good position here. I think that, yeah, we're just going to see Borderland Ranger, and it's going to get, looks like a Forest this time. And Peter Kelly's going to have to either kill Brian this next turn or find a way to get rid of at least one of those spirit tokens. Excuse me, 2 of those spirit tokens.
Yeah, it seems tough, though.
Yeah.
Peter Kelly just wants to look at the top card of his library and see if he's got anything that can deal with Eason's army.
For those of you just joining, we are watching the semifinals here in GP Charleston. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I am in the booth with Ben Swartz. We have Brian Eason on the left side of the table versus Peter Kelly. Peter Kelly is playing a green-white aggressive deck. You can see rankers, and he's got a Judge's Familiar in the yard. That's a card we hadn't seen very much of, but he made the top 8 with it in his deck, and it's in the main as well. So seems pretty reasonable versus Brian Eason on the left-hand side, and he is playing what we call junk tokens. Green, black, white makes tokens, uses intangible virtue and planeswalkers to just keep generating a huge board state for itself.
Okay, and Peter Kelly's seen enough, concedes the game, driving this match to a third and final game for the semifinals of Grand Prix Charleston.
Yeah, in game 1 we saw Peter Kelly do some really potent things when he got a fencing ace with a rancor on it, a few creatures, and he had a Sublime Archangel, and all of a sudden that fencing ace was massive. It attacked for 7. It had 7 power when it attacked. Blocks were made, and a Celestia Charm finished him off, but this game was much different. Let's take a quick look at John Bowling versus Matt Keene. So John on the left-hand side of your screen is playing red-black zombies, red-black aggro, and so is Matt. They have a different build. One of them has Hell Riders. The other one's gone for a little bit more direct damage type burn. So not quite the same deck, but very, very similar. A lot of cards in common. And it looks like a Diregraph Ghoul and Gravecrawler over there for Matt versus just a Gravecrawler for John.
John on 16 life here. He took 2 from his Blood Crypt and took 2 from the Gravecrawler.
Also, John is up a game in this match. These guys are playing to make it into the finals here at Grand Prix Charleston. So we're going to have a red-black aggressive deck in the finals one way or another here. Is that the Rakdos Guildgate there?
Yep.
And he's going to play a second Gravecrawler and attack now. Looks like we're going to have a slugfest on this game because there's not a lot of blocking that's going to be happening here.
Gravecrawler cannot block.
Right.
Unlikely that Diregraph Ghoul will block. So John's at 16 life. Matt's now at 18 life. So Matt's 2 creatures are going to enter the red zone. That's going to drop John down to 12. And post-combat, Matt's going to play Drolf's Messenger, dropping him down to 10 life. Before Matt passes the turn back to John. So John draws for his turn, looks to be a bonfire, but he put it directly into his hand. Does not want to cast it for 1 to take out the Gravecrawler. Probably didn't want to cast it anyway. But he is going to play Dragon's Call Summit. It's going to come into play untapped thanks to the Blood Crypt. And he's going to cast Knight of Infamy and crash in with his pair of Gravecrawlers. But we are going to head back to the Brian Eason versus Peter Kelly match. And Peter Kelly has gotten things off to a start with a turn 1 Avacyn's Pilgrim and a turn 2 Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. We're reaching some technical difficulties here. We should have this back for you guys in just a second. There are the players.
We'll get the overlay back up. All right.
Mayor of Avabrook comes down for Peter.
So that's 5 damage now into an empty board. Brian Eason just drew a pretty reasonable draw there with the Centaur Healer.
Yeah, so Brian's sitting on 14 life, it looks like. And looks like he is going to play that Centaur Healer. Yep. He'll go up to 17. And Peter Kelly here just going to attack in with the Thalia. That's going to be 3 damage.
3 damage of first strike, so the Centaur Healer was not going to block. And he's got a fencing ace. Wow, so again, we see Peter with a very impressive board state here right out of the gates. Very quick. Centaur Healer is doing a pretty good job of holding off the majority of it here, but next turn there's going to be big damage coming Brian Eason's way, so he really needs to start getting things moving forward in his direction. before he just gets ran over.
Yep.
All right, there's our graphic back.
There we go. Brian Eason on 14 life. Peter Kelly on 20. Lingering Souls comes out for Brian Eason. Those are just 1/1 Flying Spirit tokens. There's no intangible virtue in play. If Peter Kelly has a Rancor or two for this fencing ace, that's going to be tough for Brian Eason to deal with.
Yeah, now I do see that Brian does have an intangible virtue in hand. He's also got an Intrepid Hero. So right now Peter Kelly's just going to bash with his 2 either first or double strike creatures. It looks like the Centaur Healer is going to jump in front of the fencing ace. It makes a lot of sense because that's actually a trade. It's a 2/2 fencing ace. Wow, and he lets it get traded off. All right.
Brian Eason takes 2.
That's a pretty good deal for Brian Eason. He's really happy that happened. I mean, he probably expected that a Celestia Charm or something was going to ruin that plan, but he didn't feel like he had a choice, so he made the block, and it actually worked out for him.
Well, I mean, if Peter had the Celestia Charm, that would have been devastating for Eason. He would have taken 8 there.
Yeah, and lost his Centaur Healer, so it's a huge difference.
So
they're going to game 3 in the other match. All right, so in our other match here in the quarterfinals, Matt Keane versus John Bolding, they are going to game 3.
So Peter Kelly casts no spells in his turn, so Mayor of Averbrook transforms into Howpack Alpha before going to Eason's main phase. Eason now mulling over his options. He's running out of time a little bit. Facing against the 3/3 Werewolf of Howpack Alpha, which will not create a 2/2 Wolf token at the end of turn. That's only during the controller's turn, only at the end of Peter Kelly's turn.
Right, it doesn't transform until the beginning of each upkeep. So, all right, so we see Garrick Relentless, and it looks like he's going to battle Thalia with it. He's just going to take out Thalia. She is now a 2/1.
And that's going to transform Garrick Relentless.
He could have traded Garrick for the Howpack Alpha. It's a 3/3. I think he signaled towards Thalia, though.
In response, though, Peter Kelly is going to Faith Shield Thalia.
And give her protection from green, so that means that they don't fight at all.
Yep.
But Garrick's already used an ability for the turn, and Brian Eason is forced to just ship the turn back. So what does Peter Kelly have that he can use to punch through this damage? Right now, he's got to decide if he wants to deal with Garrick or not, or if he just wants to go to the face. And Brian Eason's in a pretty weak position. He's just sitting there with 2 1/1 spirit tokens, and yeah, that's it as far as blockers. He's also tapped out.
Peter Kelly serves with his team. Howpack Alpha, Thalia, and Avacyn's Pilgrim enters the red zone, attacking Brian Eason.
Yeah, he said, attack you. So the Avacyn's Pilgrim is just a 1/1 right now, so it is vulnerable to getting killed, but it would also mean that Brian Eason takes a bunch of damage, takes 5 damage if, well, he could, I guess, block one of the others, but doesn't really have any great blocks here. He might even, can he take it? 3, 4, 5, 6. He is going to take out the Avacyn's Pilgrim with 1 spirit token.
Okay, so
and again, Peter Kelly's just trading off his creatures here, but he is getting in damage as it goes. That hit was for 5. It's going to drop Brian Eason all the way down to 6. And what's his follow-up play? This is going to be really important to see how the rest of this game and the match goes.
Judge's Familiar.
Judge's Familiar is not unreasonable.
And create a 2/2 Wolf token with Howpack Alpha at the end of his turn. So it's Eason's turn. He's got to find something here. He's going to try again with the Garrick, having it fight Thalia.
That's going to free up some mana for him. It's also going to transform Garrick. He's now Veil Cursed. So what does he have in plan? He's got 5 mana available and a land drop still to go, so he has 6 mana. I see a Sunpetal Grove in his hand, and he has free reign basically to do whatever he can do here to help stabilize this board. He's still under a reasonable amount of pressure. He can certainly cast 2 spells and transform back that Howpack Alpha. That would be very advantageous for him, as Peter Kelly doesn't have any more humans.
He also wants to be careful. He doesn't know this, but Peter Kelly's second to last card is Sundering Growth. So if he plays his Intangible Virtue, Peter Kelly can Sundering Growth it and populate his Wolf token.
Yeah, that would be a big blowout for sure.
Looks like
Borderland Ranger?
Borderland Ranger into Lingering Souls is what Brian's considering.
There is that Judge's Familiar up there as well, so if that is his plan, he will open up his Lingering Souls to get Judge's Familiared out.
Okay, Borderland Ranger comes down. He can get a land and flashback the Lingering Souls.
Ah, see. Okay.
So
Sorry.
he doesn't have to pay.
Yep, my bad. I thought you meant from his hand.
He also does have one in his hand, right? But
yeah,
you're right that he doesn't want to walk it right into Judge's Familiar.
So if he does make that play, then he will transform back Halapak Alpha, and he also will not give his opponent a target for Sundering Growth.
Yep. And I also think that's a better play than getting the Intangible Virtue out anyway.
Yeah.
Getting more tokens out before he gets the Intangible Virtue. So that's what he does. He flashes it back holding 1 up so that Judge's Familiar can't counter the Lingering Souls. And puts into play 2 more spirits to join the 1 already there. So Easton's got 3 spirits at Borderland Ranger. Halapak Alpha is going to transform again back into Mayor of Avabrook. Mayor of Avabrook, just a 1/1. Its pump is only to humans, and there are no other humans on Peter's side, so he's got 2 1/1s and a 2/2 wolf.
So Brian Easton is certainly working his way towards a pretty reasonable board state here. If he can find a way to get that Intangible Virtue down, and well, I guess it's just going to get blown up. We know that, but you know, from his perspective, he's thinking, well, if I can get this Tangible Virtue down and have 1 or 2 tokens left, and get my Intrepid Hero online, that can prevent a lot of the shenanigans that Peter Kelly does with rankers and that kind of thing.
So the Intrepid Hero in Brian's hand is 2 and a white. Tap, destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. It's a 1/1 from M13, originally from Urza's Saga.
Looks like he's drawn another elf here. Maybe a pilgrim.
I mean, he could also just cast Lingering Souls and flash it back to retransform the Halapak Alpha. Peter spent his entire turn doing nothing to transform it.
That's right.
So he's going to cast Lingering Souls. Now is he going to flash it back?
He could also go for Intangible Virtue here if he wanted.
I mean, he could go for Lingering Souls first. If Peter doesn't counter it, then he can cast Intangible Virtue, right? Because Peter can't counter Intangible Virtue with Judge's Familiar. But instead, he's just going to cast Intrepid Hero.
All right, so he wants to get that hero online.
And then cast Avacyn's Pilgrim. So that's 3 spells. Halapak Alpha definitely retransforms into Mayor of Avabrook.
Now, does he have any attacks here?
He can attack with 3 tokens. You might want to start attacking, maybe with 2 or 3 tokens. Yeah, so he'll attack in for 2. If Peter wants to block with Judge's Familiar, that's fine. That's fine by Brian. But he doesn't. Peter falls to 18. Halapak Alpha transforms into Mayor. So back to Peter Kelly's turn. He's going to play Champion of the Parish and then play Avacyn's Pilgrim.
It's going to get a trigger on Champion of the Parish. It's going to make it into a 2/2. It's currently a 3. Is actually a 3/3 thanks to the Mayor, though.
Yep. Mayor's ability giving humans +1/+1 is now relevant because the 3 humans or the 2 other humans on Kelly's side of the board.
Only gives it to other humans, right?
Yep, to other humans.
All right, I think that was an Abrupt Decay.
Okay, that's pretty good.
And he still has that Intangible Virtue. He also has Vault of the Archangel on the battlefield. So if he wants, he could consider bashing in and just gaining a huge chunk of life. He could just sit back if he wants. Because how the heck is Peter Kelly going to get through this wall of tokens? Especially with that. All right, now there's the Intangible Virtue. So this is going to open him up a little bit.
So if you're Peter Kelly, are you going to cast that Sundering Growth as soon as possible, or are you going to let him attack in with his Vigilance creatures?
Well, looks like he is... he must have passed the turn.
Okay.
So he's going to get a Populate on the Wolf token.
And so now Brian's only going to attack with...
I see. So he did it pre-combat, so he would have to actually tap his creatures.
looks like Issa is going to attack in with 3 of his spirit tokens. That's going to drop Peter down to 15 life. If Peter tries to make a big attack, I see. So Brian is using the -1 ability on Garrick the Veil Curse to sacrifice one of the tapped spirit tokens to go grab a Thrag Tusk. And now with 5 mana open, cast that Thrag Tusk.
Yeah, so he's going to start to get a huge advantage off of Garrick the Veil Curse if he can just start chaining together whatever creatures he feels likes out of his deck, especially Thrag Tusk, since that's going to give him a nice cushion back again. He's at 6 life. This will bring him back up to 11. And sure enough, there's the Thrag Dad. It's going to put him at 11. Again, that Intrepid Hero is really holding off Peter Kelly's ability to make something massive with like a Sublime Archangel or a Rancor or whatever. It's just going to make those dead cards, or not necessarily dead, but certainly weaken those cards. So even though Brian Easton was up against it pretty good, sitting at just 5 life, it looks like he's recovered fully.
Ooh, and Rancor on the Judge's Familiar is going to allow it to sneak straight past that Intrepid Hero. So Easton is put to a decision how he wants to block that Judge's Familiar.
I think he's just going to throw one random token in front of it.
Yeah. That's what he does. I mean, take 2 trample.
Yeah, it's just 2 trample damage. He goes down to 9. It's not that big of a deal. And Peter Kelly loses what could be a key creature as far as blocking, attacking, that kind of stuff later. So
Easton draws for his turn. And now thinking over his options. Thragtusk gets in there, along with a couple of tokens. 3 tokens, in fact. So that's 8 damage worth. Is Peter going to block somehow? Put 2 wolves. Oh no, he's going to put a Champion of the Parish in front of the Thragtusk. Champion of the Parish is a 3/3, so that will destroy the Thragtusk.
Again, this just seems fine for Brian Easton. Like, he's pretty happy to start trading off his creatures here. He has a very steady supply, and wow, he's got a Restoration Angel to blink Thragtusk as well. It's going to gain him 5 more life. It's also going to give him a Beast token. Again, there exists no Beast tokens here.
And that top token, I believe, is the 1/1 Wolf token from Garrick the Veil Curse.
Yeah. It's got Death Touch.
Yep. And he's going to make
another one. So his board position has improved very, very dramatically here.
Garrick the Veil Curse sitting on 2 loyalty. And Brian passes the turn back to Peter Kelly, who will cast in Avacyn's Pilgrim.
Yep. So where does this game go from here? I mean, it looks right now like Brian Easton, he's ahead on life, and he's got a huge board position advantage, and boom. So is that ability a May ability? On
I
Champion?
believe all triggers now are a May ability, either way, right?
No, they're not. If it's a
Champion the Parish is not a May ability.
Right. So what that means is that Peter Kelly cannot do it, but Brian Easton can say you have to.
Sure.
And it looks like Brian Easton is now getting very aggressive here, turning a bunch of guys sideways. And this is the turn where he's finally decided that he can use his Vault of the Archangel, most likely. I don't think that he's got
also Peter doesn't have
Gavany Township online yet.
Very many profitable blocks here.
No, he doesn't. And the fact is that Brian is going to be able to gain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 life on this swing just as the board sits. Like, yeah, this seems like Brian has had enough, and he's finally going to start battling in there, and it looks like he's going to be able to win this game because there's just really no great blocks for Peter Kelly, and that even if he makes what would normally be a profitable block, it will not be profitable thanks to Vault of the Archangel.
So Peter arranging his creatures. Blocks the Mayor of Averbrook and the Avacyn's Pilgrim on the Thragtusk. That's 3 powers worth. Blocks the 2 Wolves on the 3/3 Beast, and blocks the 2/2 Avacyn's Pilgrim on Brian Eason's Border Land Ranger.
So we do, in fact, see the Vault of the Archangel has been activated. It looks like he's going to gain 17 life, go up to 31, and he's going to get in for a bunch of damage. They're counting out exactly how much damage. It was 10 that Peter Kelly took. It drops him down to 2, and at 34 life, Brian Eason is in a really good position here. He's going to get another Beast token back after this, and Peter Kelly has nothing. I don't even think there's a card in his deck that can get out of this.
No creatures, 2 life, facing down an army. Peter's going to look at the top card of his library, extend the hand. Brian Eason wins the semifinals, goes on to the finals of Grand Prix Charleston with his Junk Tokens deck.
Wow, that was, Peter Kelly got off to a really, really quick start that game, you'll have to remember. Like, he really had Eason up against the ropes, and he just ground his way back, and all of a sudden, you look at the board state, and he had way more creatures, and a lot of them were better, too. All right.
Oh, and we just get to the other match in time for a handshake.
Wow, that was a massive handshake, too.
Not sure who won. John Bolding won. He's going to the finals to face off against Brian Eason.
You see him shaking his head. He just looks like he is under an incredible amount of stress out there. That must have been a close one.
Wow. So we will have a finals for you guys in just a few moments' time. And there you go. You see the bracket. John Bolding with his black-red aggro deck facing off against Brian Eason and his Junk Tokens deck here for the finals of Grand Prix Charleston.
Yeah, let's take a look at how we